So, you want to be a miner. How's everyone doing? This video will be told from the perspective of me, the Elguapoe, the solo mole master, the 25-time Big Rock Breaker Monthly Man of the Year, and what Miners Delight labeled Sexiest Man of the Century. Now I need you to sit back, open your Excel sheet, grab the notepad, your fountain pen, and get your sunglasses on, because your future as a miner is looking bright. In this first video of this series, we will go over the fundamentals of mining in the verse. This is for beginners and people getting back into mining. Now let's get this guide started. The first thing I'm going to talk about is scanning. I'm going to keep it simple for now. We will touch on this more in the materials section. But when you go out mining, you do a hell of a lot of scanning. You use your V keybind to get into scanning mode or whatever your joystick is saved as, and our focus is on the right side of the middle UI. Positioned at the middle of the bar is a 180-degree scan angle in front of you. If you fill the bar, it is a 1-degree scan angle. If you empty the bar, it's a 360-degree scan angle. The more you zoom in that scan, the more precise your scan is based on that middle screen crosshair. You press the tab key to do the actual scan. To make things simple, because Elguapoe likes simple, we're going to stay at the middle of the bar, 180 degrees, for most of our scanning. Your first scan of a bubble will reveal an RS signature. This RS signature is telling you a couple of things: what you are looking at, and how many of them you are looking at. Since we are mining, you need to watch out for a few things here. If it's a 620 or a multiple of 620 in the RS signature, it is a ground vehicle mineable. If it is a multiple of any of these numbers I just posted on the screen, then it is the ship mineable deposit cluster. Seems complicated, but here's the simple guide on that. Ground vehicle minables or rock minables only pop in around 5 kilometers out. Ship mining deposits pop in anywhere past that 5 kilometer amount and all the way up to about 15 kilometers, and in the future, who knows how these values will be adjusted based on the ship. But this is a good rule of thumb to go by. Aside from that, we also have ships and wildlife that will pop up on your scans. Wildlife scans start coming in at about the same distance as the ground vehicle minables, but has this little symbol next to it to let you know it's got a pulse. If you want to avoid finding as many scans for wildlife and ground vehicle minables, make sure you do your scanning from higher up, around 5 kilometers off the surface. Now, when mining out in space, there is also a very easy solution to finding rocks and clusters of rocks over panels and ships. Once again, you are looking for multiples like you see here. They also pop in at the distances the rock deposits do on the surfaces. If we are out mining, we're not going after anything that is a multiple of 2,000. It's just that simple. Once you pick a target, you're going to scan and then focus in on that target by getting that ping angle closer to the 1% and scan again at 1%. You are then going to hold down your left click button to begin the full scan. Sometimes you need to close the distance a little to get accurate readouts, just like you have to when you're scanning a ship. Once you get close, the scan should now reveal to you the asteroid type or deposit type. Now this brings us to our next little mini topic here. Flight modes and the different ship modes. So we just did a bunch of scanning. When I'm flying around looking for rocks, ideally I want to be at the sweet spot of about 300 to 500 speed, and to achieve that, you need to make sure you are in nav mode. You switch between the master modes by holding the B keybind. Nav mode will allow you to achieve higher speeds, but with the trade-off being not having access to your shields or your ship weapons. Now this takes a few seconds to swap between to have the mode initialize. This is a pro and a con, obviously, but it will mean you can quantum jump out of the area if you don't like the vibe all of a sudden. If you survive that little timer, of course. Now when you approach a rock or an asteroid you are willing to mine, you should remember to kick over that SCM mode, so you have some shielding in case things go bad. My workflow goes like this: nav, scan, locate rock, tighten the ping angle, scan again, hold down the left click to see the asteroid or the deposit type, then swap to SCM mode when I'm approaching the rock. The jump between nav and SCM mode also works as an amazing little e-brake system. It can save your ass in countless situations. Also a little reminder, you can press and hold the Z key to free look. When you show up to your rocks and you are positioning, remember to scan and hold the Z key to see the distance you are from the rocks around you. This will really help you get to your optimal distances. Now on to MFDs. I want you to take a look up here. You see that? It's not just for show. This is important stuff. When the systems in the future work correctly, you shouldn't have to be messing with these too often for casual mining. But for now, we need to do some tweaking. Once in SCM mode, you want to make sure you are giving the right amount of power to the mining laser. That is this little section right here. You may need to pull power from somewhere else to get the right amounts, but this is crucial for mining. I won't go deep into ship parts to get into detail about it. For the mole, one of the best upgrades you can do is getting a civilian cooler. That drops the mandatory power down from 4 to 2. That's going to free up some of your power to put in your lasers. For all ships right now, the quantum drive is probably your most important upgrade to make. Make sure to go on Urkel.games to find the best loadout possible for you. Now we're going to move into the mining HUD. This is going to be a lot to take in, so just bear with me. We're going to start from left to right. On the left side margin, we have our mining modules and their effects. And on the bottom left, we have our current laser stats. These stats are also showing how they are being affected by the mining modules you have equipped. If you fire off an active module, you will see the numbers change in real time. If you have passive modules attached to your lasers, then the original number on the left side, right there, should reflect the stats of the module already. Next, we have the left bar on the middle mining HUD that has to do with the laser's range. When mining, you want to be at an optimal range, or even closer if you can. You will notice a steep power drop-off the further you fall behind that optimal power line, and the closer you get to that max line. Each laser dictates its own optimal distance to break the rock at. The orange striped caution bar at the top is telling you if you are inside of this range, you will take damage. If you break a rock in that range, you will take damage even if it's a clean and a perfect break. If you overcharge a rock while in this range, you will take a lot more damage. Depending on the type of rock you are mining, you can take a hell of a lot, or barely any at all, even if you are inside of the danger zone. Next up, we have the middle right red zone, the overcharge zone. When you put power into the rock, if you get into the red zone, it fills up the red zone and also increases that distance danger zone, expanding the explosion radius and the distance you can be before taking damage. It pulls you right into it. This bar fills up fast and it drops slow. It can be mitigated a bit by using specific modules that decrease the overcharge rate. On the topic of ship damage, if you take damage to your ship, it's smarter to have your shield up. Aside from that, your modules will not be shielded from the blast. If you blow up a rock that has a high explosion modifier, or just drop an atomic weapon on that son of a bitch, you can expect to have all your equipped modules fall off the ship. When you overcharge a rock or break in the danger zone, you will be met with a constant reminder to how amazing you are at mining, with a notification on the screen letting you know. This also means you can expect a slight downward drift now when mining. You will notice a slight pull of the nose of your ship to the surface. This is a major torque imbalance. Next is the green zone, noted by that optimal text. The goal of mining is to fill up that green zone without filling up any red zone and getting the rock broken. Depending on the laser, module, and rock type, this green zone can be bigger or smaller. The bigger it is, the easier it is to deal with. You get it. When you enter the green zone, you are now requiring less power to break the rock. Not a lot, but you will notice as time goes on that you have to drop your power down a bit once you approach into that green zone. Laser intensity is just that. The green bar filling up is showing how much charge you have gained on the rock, and the laser intensity percentage is what power level you are currently throttled to. The bottom bar with the striped line shows your minimum power output that the laser allows. Every laser has a different minimum power level. Now on the far right margin, we have your scan results. That's the deposit or asteroid type, the rock mass, the amount of resistance and instability, its difficulty level, and the rock's complete composition. For this side, resistance is a direct negative percentage to the amount of power you are putting out. So if you are breaking a rock with 20% resistance, you are putting 20% less charge into the rock. This doesn't have to do with that laser intensity on the screen, but the raw power values put out by your lasers and the modules. Instability can also be different based on your laser, modules, and rock type as well. To keep this simple, the lower this is, the easier the break will be for you to handle. Instability works like a wave. The more instability, the wilder the wave is, the harder the crash, and the more delicate you should be. This will pull your power up a little bit and down a little bit, based on the amount of instability we have. Currently, the difficulty level of the rock is just based on what it believes you can do. For now, do not let that dictate your decisions in breaking a rock. We will touch on this more later, and you will really understand what I'm talking about. Rock composition is showing you the total SCU amount in the rock, and then a breakdown of what makes up that SCU number. The cargo number at the bottom shows your current cargo, how full you are, and with what. If you pick up Quantanium, for instance, then you will also get a volatile cargo text on your screen, letting you know you are on a timer before you explode. When that timer runs out, you die. Alright, if you are still with me, give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Chris hates it, I appreciate it, and it takes a hell of a lot of time to put these guides together and get people on the right level. Let's move on to our tools. The different lasers in the game have many different stats and sizes available. Sizes of lasers currently go from size 0 to size 2, but the introduction of larger mining ships will introduce the glorious size 3s as well. As you can imagine, the bigger the number, the stronger the laser. Size 0 laser fits on the ground mining vehicles. Size 1 lasers fit on the smaller sized mining ships like the Prospector and the new Golem, and whatever else they release in that range. Then we have the size 2 lasers, which are the fat boys on the block, and currently only made for mid-sized ships. Currently, the only ship in the game that can equip these size 2 bad boys is the Mole. Now I like to separate the lasers out, not only by size, but by what rock size they are built for as well. Small rock breaking and sub-breaking, mid-sized rock breaking, and large rock breaking. Obviously it's subjective, but if you want to be skilled like the Elguapoe, start seeing it this way as well. Knowing which laser to use on which size rock is one of the most important things you can know as a miner. Listen, I can go over all the numbers, all the stats, all the modules with you, or I can break things down a little more simply. So far, size 0 lasers don't really have too much variation in function. Of course, that will all change with more updates and more additions to the ground vehicle mining loop. But the Helix is the most powerful laser, and I'm sure the Hofstede will be one of the easiest to use. Some things just never change. As for size 1 lasers, in my opinion, you only have a few options you want to go with. 3 options to be exact. The Hofstede, big green zone, cuts down on the rock's resistance while having 1 module slot. The Impact 1, which gives a moderate green zone, a long distance, a little less rock instability, and 2 module slots. Both the Hof and the Impact share the same amount of max power at 2100, by the way. So you can potentially see the Hof as having at least 30% more power or so because of the resistance you gain on the Impact and the resistance you lose on the Hof. Third option, you go with the Helix 1, which has the most power at 3150 and the absolute smallest green zone window. Oh, that's fun. The Helix 1 also has 2 module slots as well, but cuts down on the rock's initial resistance by 30%. Another key factor to think about between these lasers are the minimum power stats. The Hofstede's minimum power level is 5%. The Impact's is at 20%, and the Helix is also at 20%. These are the most important stats you should be worried about with any mining laser. The power, how it affects the rock's resistance, how it affects the rock's instability, how many module slots it has, and its minimum power. With all this in consideration, I am also going to go over the laser on the new Drake Golem mining ship. It also uses a size 1 laser. This one is bespoke. It is looking like Frankenstein's monster compared to what we are used to, a lot like the ship. The Drake Pittman laser has the power of a Helix 1 at 3150, the minimum power of the Helix as well at 20%, and an optimal range of 40 meters. This thing also adds 25 to the resistance to the rock, which isn't a good thing, and increases the instability of the rock by 35%. It slows down the green zone charge window by 40%, but has a big green zone window at plus 40% compared to the Hof's plus 60% green zone window. You know, this laser is very interesting. The real winner with this laser, though, is absolutely the fact it can also hold 2 modules, just like the Helix 1 does. Now, as for the size 2 lasers, there are 4 lasers that I regularly use. Any surprise it's the exact same ones as for the size 1? I don't think so. Hofstede, same bonuses as for the size 1 version. Impact is also the same as the size 1 version. The difference? The power. Now in size 2 we are looking at a power of 3360 instead of the previous 2100. Not only has the power changed, the Hofstede size 2 has 2 module slots now, and the Impact 2 has 3 module slots. Then we have the Arbor 2 laser, which also has 2 module slots. It's a low power laser, has a big green zone, and reduces the rock instability by 35%. The Arbor has a power rating of only 2400 and has a minimum power amount of 5%. Finally, last but not least, my favorite, the Helix 2 laser, weighing in at 4080 power, 3 module slots, a negative 30% to the rock's resistance, but a tiny green zone window. This is the final piece to any mole miner's puzzle. Now let's talk about modules. There are active and passive modules. I will leave you to do your own research on the differences between all of them, but I will release with this video guide a little cheat sheet showing the stats of all laser modules and gadgets in the description of this video. Now, the differences between active and passive modules are active modules you need to fire off. They have a set amount of charges, and when the charges run out, they fall off and you have to replenish them. All passive modules are stackable, but not every single active module is also stackable. We'll go over this in depth later. The modules I use regularly are the Riger module, which is a passive module that adds to your laser's raw power, but shrinks your green zone window. This comes in 3 options, ranging from the Riger 1 being the cheapest, giving the least amount of power and shrinking your green zone window the most, to the Riger C3, which costs the most, gives you 25% more power, and only shrinks your green window by 1%. The next important module I want to talk about is the Focus module, which is a passive module that increases your green zone window size but decreases your raw laser power. Just like the Riger, there are 3 options for it, ranging from 1 to 3. As for the active modules I mostly use the Surge module and the Stampede module. The Surge module, once fired, only lasts 15 seconds. It only has 6 charges. The Stampede module lasts 30 seconds and has 6 total charges before it falls off. The Surge module, once fired, is raw power, providing 50% more power and negative 15.5% resistance, but increases the instability of the rock by 10%. The Stampede, once fired, provides a bonus of 35% more power and lowers the instability of the rock by 10%. Anyways, back to what I was saying about stacking modules. All the passive modules in the game stack, but not all the active modules stack. Some people think there's only 2 types of mining modules in the game, but in reality there's active, there's passive, and then there's uninterruptible active modules. Currently, there's only one module that doesn't interrupt the others. That's the Surge module. Passive modules run on your laser in the background while you mine. You don't need to fire them. When you run out of charges on your active modules, they fall off your ship and you gotta replenish them. Now, as for the other active modules, you can't stack them together on one laser. If you try, one just cancels the other. You see how that lifeline just canceled the brand? So even if you were to press all 3, you'd only have one module running. That makes the Surge module the only active module in the game that stacks with other active modules. Now this is true for a single laser. 3 lasers each running 1 Stampede each would work just fine. Okay, now you know which good modules and lasers to use on your ship. Well, let's talk about putting them on your ship now. There are 2 ways: hot swapping in the hangar or in the field, and by using the vehicle loadout menu while your mining ship is stored. If you are hot swapping, you must make sure you unlock your ship ports from the pilot seat of your ship. The default keybind is Right Alt plus K. Once you do that, you just have to line up your modules using a multi-tool with a tractor beam attachment, pick them up with the tractor beam, and rotate them around by the laser head until you see it highlights green. You'll want that bullseye pointing towards you. Now the same goes for the laser head, although I don't recommend bringing laser heads up on the freight elevator in your hangar if you don't have to. The easiest way is doing it from the vehicle loadout menu. Just add them from the utility screen and make sure you save them. Let's talk about the lasers and the max rock size breaks now. I'm gonna break it down super simple for the people who by choice make Lorville their home. Since Surge modules and Riger C3s are the most powerful modules, I'm going to give you estimates using these modules on the laser heads. This is to show you maximum potential. We're gonna start out with the new Drake Golem and its Pitman laser head. If you come across a rock and can get it down to under 20% resistance, then you can easily break a 34K rock with 2 Surge modules attached. Or, if you are a passive guy, around 24K at 20% resistance using 2 Riger C3 modules on the new Drake Golem. As for the Prospector, if using an Impact 1 laser on that same 20% resistance rock, and with 2 Surge modules, and they're going at the same time, you are looking at breaking a 25K rock, my friend. Again, for running 2 Riger C3s on it, you can expect to break around, give or take, 16,000 mass rocks at 20% resistance. Now, when using the Hofstede 1 with a Riger C3 on it, you can expect to break a rock that is around 14K at 10% resistance, or around 17K with the Surge module running and the rock having an initial value of resistance at 10% or even a little higher. Now for the Helix 1, we will also go based off of rocks that end up showing around 10% resistance with the surges running. With 2 surges on the Helix 1 laser, you will be able to break rocks that are around the 38K mass mark. If you go passive, with 2 Riger C3s and the same rock at 10% resistance, you are looking at breaking rocks that are around 27K in mass. Okay, now we got the micro mining ships out of the way. Let's get on and talk about the size 2 lasers. On mid-sized mining ships now and in the future, you have the space to have at least 3 lasers. Maybe they release something with only 2 that is also mid-sized in the future, who knows? But this is where the which laser for what size rock part comes in. We use the Helix 2 laser for rocks that are massive. With 3 Riger C3s on a Helix 2, you can break rocks that are around 43K mass at about 10% resistance. With 3 surge modules, you can break 75K rocks with the same 10% resistance. This right here is our big rock breaker. I use this for most rocks above 45K, all the way to 75K, depending on the rock's green zone size and instability. Now for our mid-sized rock breakers, anything between the size of let's say 10K and 45K, we use either the Hofstede 2 or the Impact 2. The Hofstede 2 with Riger C3s on it can easily handle a 28K rock that has a 10% resistance. If you slap 2 surges on that same Hofstede, it can handle a 41K rock at 10% resistance. The Impact 2 with 3 Riger C3s on it can handle a 31K mass rock at 20% resistance. And if we slap 3 surge modules onto it, that's 55K rock at 20% starting resistance. But it's not hard to break a 60K with an Impact either once the surge modules start kicking in. Finally, we have our small rock breaking lasers. You really got 2 options. Both of these can be used to break the small rocks and the pieces that break off the initial rock you are working on. We call these sub-breaks. The first option is the Arbor 2 laser. This is the king of safe mining here. With 2 Riger C3s on it, you can break a rock at about 18K mass and 20% resistance. For this laser though, our goal isn't to gain as much power as possible. This laser's job is to make sure we come home with as much as possible, as easy as possible from those sub-breaks. The green zone window and lowering of the rock's instability works wonders, but I definitely recommend at least a Riger C3 on it, along with a support module of some kind so you can handle most of the sub-breaks that you run across. If you aren't going with the Arbor, you're going with the Hofstede, plain and simple. The Hofstede in this scenario with the Riger C3 on it can break just about any tough sub-break you have at around 20K mass and 20% resistance. Now keep in mind, some sub-breaks you run into can be very challenging, even with 1 Riger C3 on that Arbor. But on the Hofstede, you can still break a 15K rock at 40% resistance. So obviously, this is my choice for my small rock breaker. Onward and upward to the last set of our tools, the coup de grace, gadgets. These modify the rock parameters. You put one in your backpack before you go mining. Gadgets are game changers. They all do something a little different. Gadgets all either lower the rock's resistance, the instability, or they grow the green window and make it charge faster, or a little bit of each. Some even increase the chance and or amount of materials clumping up and cluster together. This is all good and well, except they all have pros and cons attached to them. Now, since I'm an extremist, I prefer the ones that modify a rock to the maximum. First gadget, best gadget, the Sabir gadget. The Sabir is what you take with you to ensure you break the massive rocks. Plain and simple. The bonus is it gives you a bigger green zone window, which is exactly what we need when we're mining a big rock on the Helix laser. The Sabir's best quality though is it lowers resistance of the rock by 50%. It grows your green zone as well by 50%. The Sabir gadget sells for something like 13 or 14K. Not bad at all. The next gadget I use is the Bormax. The sweet old Bormax, tried and true. If a rock has some insane amount of instability, well, that's the time you use the Bormax. This thing lowers a rock's instability by a whopping 70%. It raises the rock's resistance by 10%, but has a cluster modifier of 30%, making the tier 1 materials in it clump up better which means less garbage common material when you are extracting. This thing is cheap. I think it sells for 13K a pop. The third gadget I recommend is the Wave Shift gadget. This is the gadget you use when you are really struggling to break a rock because of that razor-sharp green zone window. It increases the green zone by 100%, but slows it down by 30%. It also happens to lower your instability by 35%. This is on the more expensive side though, at 19K, but well worth the cost when it's standing between you and getting paid from a rock. Now when you're out in the field, you want to make sure you always keep the gadget inside of your backpack, not on your ass. You approach the rock, move the gadget from your backpack to either your hands or to your ass slot, then press the 5 keybind to equip it in your hands. Once it's in your hands, you hold the left click and walk up, or float, up to the rock. You let go of the left click once you see a gadget highlight appear, and that will place it on the rock. You then hold the F key and zoom in a little with your mouse scroll wheel to better see the 3 bars. You then adjust the bars until you get at least 90%. Any more than that is pointless. Then press accept. You're done. A gadget can also be placed on a sub-break. A gadget is also reusable but can be destroyed. They can also randomly just break, even on a perfect rock break. After you break a rock, if it's not sparking, you can pick it up and use it again on another rock. Next section, now I'm going to go over actually breaking and extracting a rock. In this clip, I'm going to show you a decent rock and I'm going to walk you through my thought process on breaking it. Our goal is always to leave with as much good ore as possible. This means the most important thing we can do is manage to give it the perfect amount of power. Here we go. The first thing I did was recognize the size of the rock and the percentage of the rhyolite, not the best. So I put on that bore max in an attempt of clustering the rhyolite up together better. My first hit on this rock is a test to see how much power is required to get this break done. I didn't feel confident with that resistance, which we just raised by placing the bore max. And the fact I had a Riger C3 on the laser instead of a Stampede didn't help. I decided to not waste any more of my time on a failure and put the right modules on the laser. No point in waiting around for it. After we place the Stampede on the laser, we give it another shot. Now keep in mind, I would consider this an intermediate rock. This isn't a beginner, easy mode rock. This also isn't the perfect laser to use on it. That would have been the Hofstede. Now, I went full bore on it. I popped all 3 modules at the exact same time. I knew the extra 10% power from the Stampede would be perfect. Now our goal is to make sure we hit our surges exactly when they end. We want to do that so when the time comes we can pop all 3 at the exact same time, since the Stampede is 30 seconds and the surges are 15. Now remember that instability. Once we get up to the green zone, we start having to fight and find the exact perfect amount of power. We drop it back down to the 80s, 82, 83-ish. But we're still fighting that instability, so we're still going up and down, little by little. We do not want to get a lot of red zone. This window ain't massive. And right when I think I found the perfect amount of power, boom, it red zones me. But it's not the end of the world. We didn't lose anything. We even got our gadget back. Now after your initial break, you want to head down on your sub-break laser, your small rock breaker. Unfortunately, my ship was not set up right at the time, so I got an arbor with 2 torrents. Not the best thing for this. Best thing would have been the Hofstede, obviously, with probably a Riger C3 and a Focus or a torrent. Still, we were able to get the job done. You really need to go into your menus, go to the keybinds, choose Advanced Controls, choose Vehicle Mining submenu, and then set your Switch Mining Laser toggle to your right mouse button. This makes things so much better for mining. Now your right click will switch to extraction mode. Once you've broken up all the good breakable sub-breaks, personally, myself, I only take 30% and above of tier 1 or higher materials if I can, unless I'm greedy and desperate. You now want to extract it up and start filling up your ship. Once you're full, get the hell out of there. Go back to the refinery. Now I want to go over the different minerals in the system. You have 5 types of minerals in the game when it comes to mining. You have gems, which we aren't worried about for this video. We have the S tier minerals, the tier 1 minerals, the tier 2 minerals, and the common minerals. These I separate by value and rarity. These minerals have widely varying stats, as you see here, and these stats affect the rock's composition, how easy or hard it is to break, the instability, and even the green zone size and the midpoint. Many rocks can have up to 3 of these minerals inside of a single rock, and that's without counting the inert materials. Even though every rock may not have an S tier or a tier 1 or tier 2 mineral inside, it will almost always have a common mineral attached to it. Different locations have different common minerals that will spawn at the location, and we will touch on that in the next section. When evaluating the value of a common mineral in the game, I don't judge it based on the price or sales value. For me, it's about 2 things. How does it change the overall rock? And what is its mass to SCU ratio? The lower the mass per SCU ratio, the better. More juice from the squeeze. The difference between a massive rock being a 100k rock or a 40k rock, yet worth the same, that's where the common materials density comes into play. At this point in the verse, I don't even refine them when I have them in my ship. Crafting and base building and events like we just witnessed with Mine or Die will completely change that. But for the foreseeable future, you should see common minerals as the bones of the rock, and we're after the meat. So to put it simply, rocks composed of common minerals, silicon, ice, aluminum, quartz, titanium, corundum, and tin will net you bigger returns in the long run compared to rocks composed of iron and copper and tungsten. Those low-massed SCU commons, though, can have their own flaws, like corundum, which increases the instability of the rock. It shrinks the green zone window and increases the rock's resistance. As you can see, quartz also shrinks the green zone window and increases instability but lowers the overall rock resistance. I mean, I don't want to get too in detail about all this, so just check the screen and see all the factors at play here for each of the different rocks. I'll just tell you the rock types I look out for. When I go out hunting, I usually go for the rocks that have the common mineral aluminum, titanium, tin, silicon, ice, and even quartz. And that's because of the fact I will get paid much more for the mid-sized and large rocks I come across in comparison to finding iron or copper or tungsten. And it's as simple as that. The maximum common mineral a single rock can be made of is 70%. Now with commons out of the way, when it comes to tier S and tier 1 types, we obviously focus on value and rarity above all. When you find a rock that is tier 1 or tier S, the percentage range those minerals can be are between 20 and 50%. Once again, mass to SCU ratio is another factor you will be noticing when out mining. A 10k aluminum bexilite and a 10k aluminum quantanium rock will have vastly different mass to SCU ratios due to the fact quantanium has a very high mass to SCU ratio. Due to the rarity and cluster strength, tier S to tier 1 minerals tend to break up into uglier, less clean pieces more often. Now for the tier 2 rocks, we are looking at rocks that are lower in value and rarity in comparison to the tier 1 and tier S rocks. These minerals can make up between 30 and 60% of a rock's contents, and they break off a lot cleaner than tier 1 and tier S minerals as well. You will see a lot more 100% and 60% or higher sub-break pieces due to their cluster modifiers and higher average percent of the rock's makeup. Finally, let's touch on the newest ship mining minerals added to the game. We have Stellaron and Rhycite. Both are S-tier minerals. We have tin, silicon, and ice. These are the 3 new common minerals. These new S-tier minerals can only be found on a rock that contains tin, ice, or silicon. As of right now, you have no chance of finding them on any of the other common mineral rocks. Always remember, check the prices of these minerals regularly and check the different sales locations in Stanton and Pyro to make sure you are staying as profitable as possible. To do this, check out uex.space. They are the best in the business. If you want accurate, up-to-date numbers, check out UEX. Now that's a basic rundown on minerals. It's up to you to do a deep dive onto them and get down to the character flaws they all have. Except aluminum. You're flawless, baby. Now that you know about minerals, let me expand your consciousness. Now that we have 2 systems, things aren't as copy and paste. The short and sweet Pyro is the only place to find the new common minerals, which means Pyro is the only place to find the new S-tier minerals that compete with Quantanium. Let's start things off with good old Stanton though. The different locations in the game, whether that be moons or planets or asteroid fields, are all called home for some of these common minerals. I'm going to go through them real quick to give you an idea. Before we begin, mining on a surface and mining in an asteroid field are 2 separate things. Mining on a surface, you see way more clusters of rocks together. Mining at a Lagrange point or at an asteroid field or belt will most likely have single rock spawns. On Stanton surfaces, the lowest amount of rocks in a cluster is 4, and the max being 10 rocks. It's very rare to find a single rock spawn. Think back to the RS signatures and scanning section. If you see 18,000 RS signature, that means you have found a cluster of 10 Atacamite rocks. If you are mining in the asteroid fields and see 18,000 RS signature, you just found 9 salvage panels. Congratulations. Yeah, it's not 10 rocks, because the maximum an asteroid cluster can have in the Stanton asteroids fields is 5. But you are hundreds of times more likely to find a single asteroid rather than a 5 cluster in space. When you find one of those, you better buy a lottery ticket, my friend. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the Stanton surfaces. R-Corp. The planet has no mining, but its moons Lyria and Walla are home to tungsten, aluminum, and corundum. Hurston and all of its moons have iron and quartz. Aberdeen also has a bit of copper on it. Microtech and all of its moons have rocks made up of corundum and quartz, and U-Turd also has a little bit of copper on it. Crusader is a gas giant, no mining there yet, but there is on its 3 moons. You will find aluminum and titanium on Selene and Yella, and you'll find copper, iron, and titanium on Daymar. Now I don't want to get into the specifics of all the Lagrange mining points and their differences, but they operate the same way. You know what? Screw it. I'll give you a few spots. At the Arc Lagrange points, you find a lot more aluminum, corundum, and tungsten. At the Crew points, it's a mixed bag between aluminum, copper, iron, titanium, and tungsten. At the Her points, it's truly a mixed bag, with most of them having aluminum and iron. At the Mike points, you mostly see copper, corundum, and quartz. The Aaron Halo is a mixed bag. Any of the materials outside of the ones only found in Pyro can be found here. A complete RNG zone. Last but not least, Yella's Belt, and that's home to aluminum and titanium. Now let's get into Pyro. You know, in Pyro, the rocks are a bit different. The locations are a bit different. The amount of rocks you can find in a single cluster on Pyro is not 10 like Stanton. It's 18, baby. And not only that, but there are more clusters than in Stanton. Pair that with the new Tier S minerals, and you can see why it's becoming a hotspot for the most dangerous and luxurious miners like myself. The asteroid clusters in Pyro are built very similar to the ones in Stanton though, for now. You can still find no more than 5 rocks in a single cluster while asteroid mining in Pyro. And let's be honest, they're mostly single still. But with that being said, little birdie told me don't be too surprised if you are watching this in the future and finding a lot more clusters in Pyro asteroid fields, including clusters up to 8 rocks. Just saying. Onto the surfaces in Pyro, it's pretty spread out. we've got Pyro 1 in Monox, home to most of the copper and tungsten supply. Bloom, which is composed of copper, iron, tin, and titanium. Then we move on to one of my personal favorites, Pyro 4, which is composed of aluminum, corundum, tin, and titanium. And then there's Pyro 5 moons, which all contain the same things that Pyro 4 has. Finally, we have Terminus, which contains rocks made up of silicon, quartz, and a dash of aluminum. As for asteroid mining in Pyro, it truly is a complete mixed bag. Unless we are talking about the ring around Terminus, for some reason at the time of making this, that is composed of aluminum and titanium. Aside from that though, if you asteroid mine in Pyro, you have the chance at finding all of those sweet minables, especially the ones found only in Pyro. Pyro 4 also used to have a ring around it, but it got sent to the gulag and backburnered. Who knows when it comes back? Now that we got all that good stuff out of the way, it is important to know not all surface locations are easy to mine. Some places like Microtech and Hurston and Stanton and various places like Terminus and Ver and Pyro really slow down your flying speed. On top of that, a lot of locations in the game have winds that can push and pull your ship around while you are mining, so keep this in mind. Places like Microtech and its moons and Stanton are not for the faint of heart. They will move your ship around, making solo mole mining more of a challenge, for instance. The same can be said for locations in Pyro such as Vatra and Ver and Terminus. Of course, the wind is a lot lighter than it used to be, and until we have active weather, to be honest, it's not much to worry about. Now we're almost done, thank God. Let's talk about refining. So you know how to mine, which lasers to use, which modules are badass. You just about know what sizes of rocks you are capable of breaking. Well, once you fill up your ship, now what? Well, I'll tell you. You will go to one of the local refineries at either a Lagrange point in Stanton or one of the rundown space stations in Pyro. Here is a list of the different locations and their pros and cons. Feel free to pause now before I move on. Now, once you choose a location, preferably close to where you like mining at, you then go down to the refinery and have a choice to make. Do you want the quick cash or the value it's worth? You can use the raw mineral sales terminal and sell it right away, or you can go up to the refining terminal. The raw material terminal will give you about half the value that the rocks are worth. I say about half because it really depends on the mineral, but it's a pretty good metric to go by. If you choose to refine the ore, you choose which materials you want to keep in the order, and then you choose the process. These processes are all different, but to make this extremely simple for you, you really only want to go with the highest yielding processes. Out of the highest yielding processes, you really only want to choose between two. Now that's Dynex solventation or Ferrin. Ferrin is quicker, but costs almost double what Dynex does. Then you can go with Dynex, which takes days but costs a lot less than Ferrin. The choice is yours. Both will net you just about 85% of the SCU that you brought in. Now all you gotta do is wait out the timers. A couple days has passed, you go up there and you check. Well, what do you know? It is time to haul your ore to the nearest TDD or sales location. Once again, I implore you to get your ass on UEX and get to business. At the refining terminal, you choose your ship, you choose the order, you put the order in the ship, and it loads it on. Once you get to a TDD or a sales location of your choosing, you park your ship, you store your ship, and you go down to sell. Hopefully, auto unloading is working where you just pay a fee and wait an amount of time for them to do all the hard work for you. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work. Sometimes you gotta go down there, pick up your ship, and move all the boxes off into that freight elevator yourself, then send them down, then go sell them. Now, to close up this long-ass show, thank you for staying with me, by the way. Don't forget to subscribe. Come on, don't make me beg you now. Just press the damn button. Okay, you made that real difficult for me. Now it's up to you. You have the keys. I want you to put all that knowledge to use. The knowledge I just bestowed upon you. And remember, if you see me out there in the black, pop a flare for me.